Hello and welcome everyone to a brand new Shaman prediction video where we go through week 15 in the NFL and we pick the predictions. I preview all the games, tell you what you need to know and what you should expect from these football games. So let's just move right on in there. All you got to do is click that thumbs up button down below for me and leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think of this week's games. Your support is greatly appreciated. Make sure you go back and check out other episodes, maybe even the all-time teams, Madden franchise mode, etc. All of that good stuff. And also hit that subscribe button for future content, especially if you like these videos, because we'll be releasing them every week, letting you know this week's NFL football games, as well as possible future videos. Like more than likely in the coming weeks, I'll probably do an MVP race video, etc. So let's move in for the Thursday night game to start things off. The 4-9 Denver Broncos traveling to the Indianapolis Colts, who are 3-10. The Broncos expected to win this game by 3, at least that's what the Vegas odds people give them. Denver Broncos last week blew out the Jets, which for whatever reason I decided to pick the Jets to win that game. I don't know what I was thinking, but the Denver Broncos have the #1 defense in the entire league, at least based on yards allowed. They've only allowed about 280.5 yards per game on average. They also have the #2 third down defense in the entire league. The opponent only gets a first down on third down 29.65% of the time, which is insane. They have the #3 rush defense, only allowing 89.5 yards per game rushing the football, and the #2 pass defense in the league, only allowing about 191 yards per game throwing the football. The biggest problem is Denver's offense. 31st in the league in turnovers per game, only being beat out by one other team. They have absolutely horrid offense, 26th in points per game scored. They're 19th in rushing offense and 21st in passing offense, along with 31st in turnovers. That's absolutely horrendous. However, the Colts also are pretty bad on both sides of the football. They have the #31st defense in terms of points allowed, the #23 rush defense in the league, #30 pass defense in the league. They're #11 in takeaways, which is pretty mad decent, but they're 31st in total offense. That's horrendous. You're 31st in total offense going against the best defense in the league in terms of yards allowed. That is just spelling disaster for the Indianapolis Colts. However, the Colts do have one thing in their favor. The Broncos are winless on the road still. I believe I said this 2 weeks ago when they were playing the Dolphins in Miami. They are 0-6 in games not in Denver. That is terrible. That is absolutely horrendous, and they seem to play worse on the road than when they play at home. It's absolutely crazy. But the Colts are just such a bad team all around. Meanwhile, Denver at least has a good defense. So I think the Denver Broncos, it'll be a very, very close game. But I think the Denver Broncos and having that #1 defense in the entire league is going to pull through. It's going to be a pretty low-scoring game, but the Denver Broncos win it by just 7 points on the road and get their first road win of the season, knocking off the Indianapolis Colts. Moving on now, we got 2 Saturday games, which is going to be really interesting. The 4-9 Chicago Bears on the road at Detroit, who is 7-6, and 5.5-point favorites to win this game. Now, the Bears last week stunned at least me. I don't know about all of you guys, but I felt like it was a pretty surprising 33-7 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals last week, and I mean, I was shocked, but that doesn't take away the fact that they still are terrible. The Detroit Lions, a divisional opponent, are a lot better than the Cincinnati Bengals, because the Bears, right now, they have the 32nd ranked passing offense, because, as I've said numerous times on this series, Mitchell Trubisky is the terrible quarterback. He played really well last week, I'll give him that, against one of the worst defenses in the entire league, but, well, actually not really. They were about 16th, so they're pretty average. Pretty average defense. But compare that to all the weeks beforehand when Mitchell Trubisky played. Absolutely terrific game for him. But, I mean, you know, the inconsistency problem is definitely up in the air. I mean, the Bears are 30th in total yards, 29th in points, and they're not going against some pushover. The Cincinnati Bengals now have the 32nd ranked offense in the league, but the Lions, number 5 in points, and number 4 in the passing game with 268.2 yards per game average. Now, the Bears have the number 9 pass defense in the league, which is very impressive. And, you know, they won't have to worry about the running game because the Lions have the lowest running yards per game on average. Hell, they have the lowest yards per, or rushing attempts per game average. The biggest problem is that the Lions have the 27th ranked passing defense, which allows Mitchell Trubisky some room to try and throw the football. However, they are 3rd in the league in takeaways, which is crazy. I believe there are only 2 teams higher than them are the Jaguars and the Ravens. But the Bears, 11th in defense, which isn't too bad. They're number 5 in the red zone on allowing touchdowns. Like, they only allow a touchdown in the red zone 44.19% of the time that they reach the red zone, which is pretty insane. However, the Lions, not only are they at home, but they're a much better team than the Bengals were, and they've shown time and time again that they can throw the football effectively and consistently. The Bears are in a division where the only team that can really pass the football consistently and effectively is the Detroit Lions. The Vikings have been able to do it somewhat, especially with Case Keenum, but the Lions have just been able to throw the football a lot and with, you know, tremendous accuracy. And I think that what ultimately is going to win this game for the Lions is going to be the turnover battle. I think Detroit, they don't really throw a lot of interceptions. Matthew Stafford is a very accurate quarterback. They don't really fumble the football a lot either. But the Bears, they have that problem. Mitchell Trubisky, a rookie quarterback, has had some turnover problems, and the Lions are number 3 in the league in takeaways. I think that's going to be the ultimate difference. The Bears lose this one by 13 in Detroit, and it's going to all be thanks to turnovers. That's going to be the biggest problem that the Bears have to face in this game. And moving on to the last Saturday game, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers at 7-6. They're expected to win this game by 1 point over the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, who are 7-6 as well, for the lead in the division. So this is a huge, huge game right here as the AFC West playoff picture begins to really shape up. And normally, I'd go through and this is all the team stats and all that, but the fact of the matter is these are 2 very big offensive football teams. And for the LA Chargers, they're going to completely rely on Phillip Rivers throwing the football. 3,611 passing yards this season, 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. They have a 4-game win streak going into this game. Melvin Gordon's been pretty impressive as well. Just, I believe, about 40 or so yards away from 1,000 rushing yards this season. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to, again, rely very much on Alex Smith. 3,507 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Kareem Hunt's also been very good. He's over 1,000 yards rushing this season. However, last week was their first win in a long time against the Raiders. And while they did destroy the Raiders pretty handily, they did almost let them come back in the game in the fourth quarter. You know, they were dominating the Raiders up until the fourth quarter, and the Raiders almost won. It was kind of insane. And I think that's going to be a really big key. The Chargers aren't the pushovers that the Raiders are. The Chargers started off the season horrid. Absolutely horrid. The worst team in the league in terms of almost every statistical category, especially not being able to run the football, not being able to score, not being able to get turnovers. It was just horrendous. But now, all of a sudden, they are a team that can compete with the best of them. And I think that the LA Chargers are going to ride this win streak. Phillip Rivers is going to continue to play at the level that he's been playing at, and the Chargers are going to win their 5th game in a row right here. And it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a close one. The Kansas City Chiefs probably are going to have the lead going into the last 3 minutes or so, but they're going to find a way to blow it, and I think that the Chargers capitalize on that, unlike the Raiders did, and win the game by 4. So it's going to be a close one, but I have the LA Chargers winning this game, taking sole ownership of the number 1 spot in their division, and ultimately going to the playoffs, but we'll have to see how that works out. Then we have a real quick one. I'm not really going to spend much time on this. We have the 5-8 New York Jets taking on the New Orleans Saints, who are 9-4. And the Saints have a 15.5-point favorite in this game. And the Jets got shut out last week. The Saints have been playing defense. And the Saints are kind of PO'd that they lost against Atlanta, and I don't blame them at all. I think the Saints win this game by 21. Not even remotely close. I don't really want to spend too much time going through and explaining why. I feel like if you're a football fan, it should be obvious why I believe that. You never know. The Jets could play the same way they played against Kansas City, but I mean, they're the Jets. I seem to have forgotten that last week, but I know that now. The Jets, there's no way they're going to win this game against the New Orleans Saints. I just can't see it happening. Moving on now. I know we're going out of order here, but I wrote it down this way. The New England Patriots sitting at 10-3, 3-point favorites on the road against the 11-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, you've really got to be a special team to have a worse record and be on the road and still be the favorite to win. But that's the GOAT in the Patriots for you. I just got to say, it's kind of wild. The New England Patriots, the number 1 pass offense in the league. Now, here's a stat for you. The number 15 rush offense in the league, just in the top half of the league in rushing offense. And this is what I was saying in my recap video of the Patriots-Dolphins game. They have to run the football. Like the Patriots, it doesn't seem like the Patriots are a running team, and they're not really a running team. But Tom Brady can't do it all by himself. No player in the entire league can really do it all by himself. And Tom Brady needs the running game to come through and start gaining some positive yards. Because in the last game, they only had, 47 yards rushing or something like that? Not even 50 yards rushing? That's terrible. That's absolutely horrendous. They're averaging about 113.2 yards per game rushing the football, which takes a lot of pressure off Tom Brady and opens up the play-action pass game, which is something the Patriots do occasionally do, especially against teams that like to blitz, which the Steelers are definitely one of those teams. In terms of defense, the Patriots 29th in yards, pretty garbage, but 5th in scoring defense, which is absolutely incredible. And they've been really good as of late, but still 29th in total yards. That's going to smell bad news for Pittsburgh. Well, for the Patriots against Pittsburgh, who have the number 2 passing offense in the league, right behind the Patriots, averaging about 6 yards less passing per game than the Patriots. They also are very incredible at protecting Big Ben. Big Ben's usually one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league, but not this year. This year they have a really good offensive line, and they've been able to protect Big Ben a lot more than in years past. And I think that's going to be huge. The Steelers' defense, 6th in yards allowed, 7th in scoring, 4th in pass defense, and 9th in rush defense. They're in the top 10 in all 4 of those categories, which is absolutely insane. But missing Ryan Shazier proved to be a huge problem last week against the Baltimore Ravens, especially in the run game. And I think that the Patriots need that run game to happen, and Tom Brady's just too good of a quarterback to care that they have the 4th best pass defense in the league. And I think that's going to ultimately be the difference. Unfortunately for the Steelers, Ryan Shazier's absence is going to be huge, as it was last week. And I think the Patriots win this one. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be a really close one. But the Patriots win this one by 6. Moving on now, we've got the 6-7 Miami Dolphins traveling to the Buffalo Bills, who are 7-6. And I mean, this one is going to be all Buffalo, in my opinion. Well, not really all Buffalo, because here's the thing. We're watching the Blizzard game last week. Was pretty entertaining. But the Miami Dolphins, you know the Dolphins in snow conditions aren't usually a good pair. And whether or not it's actually snowing in Buffalo when this game happens on Sunday, the Miami Dolphins will have to run the ball in the snow, because the snow is going to lower some traction. It's also going to slow down receivers, which allows corners a lot better chance at covering these guys. And I know that Jay Cutler is going to have a hard time throwing the football, just like we saw last week. And especially if there are windy conditions in this game like there was last week, like, they're going to have to run the football. You're going to have to run the football. And Miami is 29th in the league in rushing, only averaging about 87 yards per game. They much rely on the passing game in these kind of situations. And we saw last week, the Bills can certainly run it. LaShawn McCoy has no problems running the football. So the Bills honestly are going to win this game. It's probably going to be a close one. I'm not sure whether it's going to be about 7-0 or 14-7, but I think the Bills win this one by 7 in a very low-scoring game. I don't know if it's going to snow or not. If it's snowing, then I'm going to say 7-0. If it's not snowing, but there's still a lot of snow on the ground, probably a 14-7 game. But it's going to rely a lot on the weather conditions on what this game looks like. But I still see Buffalo winning either way, especially in the cold winter conditions of New York, you know. Moving on now to, well, this one's very interesting. The 7-6 Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns, who are 7-point underdogs, as that 0-13 record looks pretty dismal on the Cleveland Browns. A lot of people think that the Browns probably could win next week against the Bears. We'll have to see on that, but first they got to focus on Baltimore. Now, what's nice is that the Baltimore Ravens seem to like to play to other teams' level. They had trouble in previous years against the Browns. They almost lost against the Browns last year. And they just have this weird problem where they will play up to the number 1 seed Steelers level and look really good, and then they'll go down and play at the Browns' level and look absolutely garbage. If we look at the Baltimore Ravens, they have the number 9 rush offense in the league, and going against the number 6 rush defense in the league, that's going to be a huge matchup here in this game. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to turnovers. DeShone Kizer is 32nd in the league in giveaways. That's bad. That's bad. Like, they give the ball away more than anyone else. And the Ravens are number 2 in the league in takeaways, so they get those advantages anyway. The problem is what I said before about the Ravens playing to other teams' levels. I think that's going to happen again here. So I think the first 3 quarters are actually going to be a really tight, close, hard-fought football game between, you know, a really terrible Ravens pass offense at number 30 in the entire league against a pretty solid Browns defense, who's number 12 in the league in yards allowed. And I think that ultimately it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. And the Browns are going to turn the ball over, maybe not even once, but twice. And the Ravens are going to win this one by 6. I think it's going to be a really close game because the Ravens just like to do that, apparently. But the first 3 quarters are going to be really close, hard-fought game. The Browns maybe have a chance, and then they throw the game away just like they did last week. Not much else to say about that. Speaking of not much to say, the 5-8 Cincinnati Bengals with the 32nd ranked offense in the league travel to Minnesota to take on the 10-3 Vikings, who are seething over that Carolina loss They are 10.5-point favorites, and I have no doubt that the Vikings will at least make it to that mark. They'll win it at home by about 17. There's not much to say about that. The Bengals, they're just they're worse than the Browns. They have the number 32 ranked offense in the entire league, and they have a pretty dismal ranked defense that got blown back by the Bears last week. That's not a good thing at all. So I'm going to have to say that the Bengals get destroyed in this game. There's not really much to talk about other than they've just been absolutely horrendous this season. Moving on now, we've got another game that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. The Philadelphia Eagles sitting at 11-2, 7.5-point favorites, taking on the New York Giants in New York, who are 2-11. And as I said last week, the whole thing with the coaching carousel going on, the quarterback carousel going on, everyone can't trust each other. The Giants are just falling apart, and it's going to happen again this week. Nick Foles is probably the best backup quarterback of all time. He is at the caliber of a starter. What I don't understand, when I talk about Nick Foles, what I don't understand is how you can go and get signed as a starting quarterback and do absolutely terrible, and then come back and be a backup and be pretty good. Like, before that, in order for him to get traded to be a starter, he went 8-1 as a starting quarterback after coming in for an injury. In this case, it was to Michael Vick. And he even has tied the record for passing touchdowns in a game as a backup quarterback. That's wild. So I have the Eagles winning this game by 11. The Giants honestly, Nick Foles is going to outplay Eli Manning. It's just going to happen, and the Giants, they need something. I don't know whether they want to trade Eli Manning in the offseason or what, but the Giants, they have to do some major changes in the offseason because their team, in general, the whole team, just is horrible, and they need to fix everything. Moving on now to the 10th game, we've got the Arizona Cardinals sitting at 6-7, traveling to Washington, who is 5-8 and 4-point favorites at home. This is one that's going to be very interesting because we have the crippled Arizona Cardinals, the second most injured, if not the most injured team in the entire league, taking on the Redskins, who are just doing absolutely horrendous this season. Arizona's really missing David Johnson as they sit 30th in the league in rush offense and 13th in pass offense. Carson Palmer, of course, being injured as well. You just can't get much worse than that. However, how about that defense? Number 7 in the league in rush defense and number 15 in the league in pass defense for the Cardinals. That's not bad at all. And you're going against a Washington team that has struggled mightily on offense over the last few weeks. 14th in pass offense, number 25 in rush offense. They're number 26 in rush defense and number 18 in pass defense. I think Adrian Peterson being questionable, it's going to be a lot on whether he can play or not. But honestly, I still think after what happened last week with Tennessee, I still have the Cardinals winning this game by 3. Whether or not Peterson can play and whether or not the team actually comes in with the intensity that they have, the Washington Redskins are just really bad right now. They can't really get a whole hell of a lot going on offense or defense, and they really don't have anything. I think that the Cardinals, obviously it's going to be another close game. The Cardinals have had a lot of close games this year. Hell, it could be a field goal fest for all I know, but I think the Cardinals win this one by 3. Moving on now, we've got the return of Aaron Rodgers as the 7-6 Green Bay Packers travel to the Carolina Panthers, who are 9-4 and 3-point favorites in this game. I'm not going to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on statistics because Aaron Rodgers, of course, coming back changes all of the offensive statistics. But Carolina did just beat Minnesota last week, and I think Aaron Rodgers is not going to be at 100% yet. I mean, I know he's been practicing and whatnot, and he looks like he's ready to play, but he said it himself. He's not here to save the Packers' season. He's just here to go out and win games the best that he can. And I just think that his first game back is going to be a bit rusty. I think that the Panthers win this one by 9. Aaron Rodgers is going to slowly get back into it, and maybe in the next 2 weeks he goes back into his full form for the last 2 games of the season. I don't think the Packers are going to make the playoffs, but him being back is definitely a good sign for Green Bay fans. Then we've got number 12 on the game. The Houston Texans sitting at 4-9, traveling to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 9-4 and 11-point favorites in this game. There's not really a whole hell of a lot to say about this game either. This one's probably going to be all Jacksonville. The Houston Texans, Team IR, they're just about as bad as the Cardinals are in terms of injuries. Jacksonville has the number 2 ranked defense in terms of total yards allowed, number 1 ranked defense in terms of points allowed, number 1 pass defense, number 1 in takeaways, number 4 in third down, in defensive third down play, and then they have the number 1 rush offense in the entire league. I think Jacksonville will win this game, but what's interesting though is that Houston's played some pretty good football as of late. I honestly don't see Jacksonville blowing them out, but I see the Jags win it by 10. I say the Jags win it by 10. Then the 13th game of this exciting week in the NFL, we've got the 9-4 Los Angeles Rams taking on the 8-5 Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks 2.5-point favorites in this game. The Seahawks won the first game between these two teams 16-10, which I say that because it is huge. It is really hard in this league, especially between two really close teams, for the team that won the first time to win again. It's just something that happens a lot in this league, more than you would even think. If two teams are very closely contested, the team that won the first game usually loses the second game. If we look at some of the stats here, the Rams offense, number 2 in the league in scoring, number 8 in the league in total yards, number 9 in the league in pass offense, number 14 in the league in rush offense, number 18 in the league in defensive yards allowed, 11th in pass defense, and number 6 in the league in takeaways, which could come in huge here. The Seahawks defense has been a kind of worse off for wear here, 13th in the league in defensive yards allowed, 16th in pass defense, 8th in rush defense, 9th in takeaways, and I think this is going to be the ultimate killer for them. They're going to be 16th in pass defense. Jared Goff and the Rams are going to pass the football quite a bit. They're going to be able to run the ball when they need to with that number 14 rush offense. It might not get a whole hell of a lot of yards, but it alleviates the pressure off of Jared Goff, and I think the Rams take into account everything that they learned from the first game. They get the win, claim the top of the division, and they win it by 4. So that's what I've got for that game. And we've got the Tennessee Titans sitting at 8-5, who just lost to the Arizona Cardinals last week, traveling to the San Francisco 49ers, who are 3-10. And despite having 5 less wins than the Titans, the 49ers are 1.5-point favorites at home. And I'm gonna play up on that. Jimmy Garoppolo has been absolutely outstanding, and if he can outplay Marcus Mariota, the 49ers win this game, and I say that they do. They take it by 10. The Titans are going to slowly fade out. It's really going to be up to these last 2 games, because I'm going to think the Titans might not even make the playoffs at this pace. You never know, but it's going to be rough. Then we've got the Sunday night game. We've got the Dallas Cowboys sitting at 7-6, traveling to the 6-7 Oakland Raiders, who are 3-point underdogs at home. The Raiders have just been really bad as of late, and they have the number 25 pass defense, and Dak Prescott has been playing really, really well. And I think that's just going to be the key. That's just going to be what they have. The Raiders can't defend the pass. Prescott is going to have to throw the football. I think that the Dak Prescott impresses in a win over the Raiders. They take it by 8, and the Cowboys' playoff hopes continue to stay alive despite Ezekiel Elliott's absence. So I think that's going to be huge. And then the Monday night game, this one I don't want to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on either. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers sitting at 4-9, 6-point underdogs at home against the 8-5 Atlanta Falcons. The Buccaneers have the number 32 ranked pass defense in the league. That's about all I need to say. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones are going to carve up that Tampa Bay defense, and they're going to win by 17. Not even going to be close. But thank you all for watching this episode. Let me know what you think of this week's predictions and what you have for this week's predictions in the comment section down below. Stay tuned for future content with that subscribe, and we'll see you next time.